lucky to have Zaya as my bonus daughter. You know, I did not birth her.
We'll do whatever the hell we can to keep them seen.
Need to get the whole trans thing going on now so they can get a Disney contract.
Oh no, I did that. Sorry, just doing the things that I did.
Every single person who's been saying something felt off about the Wade Union family situation. This one's for you. Not the gossip version, not the watered-down entertainment news spin, the real conversation. The one that Dwyane Wade's PR team has been working overtime to make sure never gets traction.
But I've never felt more connected to anyone. And I've never felt more of a purpose as one of the adults in her village that is standing 10 toes down, sometimes behind her, sometimes beside her, and sometimes in front of her leading.
Because what's coming out now isn't a rumor somebody made up on a blog. This is allegedly confirmed by people who are close enough to the situation to know what happens when the camera's cut off. For years, a loud and consistent portion of the public has been raising a very specific concern about Zia Wade. Not hate, concern, the suspicion that Zia was privately struggling under the weight of a public identity that wasn't entirely her own choice.
Real mom who wants her children to have a fair chance at making their own decisions, while you and your I want to be a husband convince your child that they need to get the whole trans thing going on now so they can get a Disney contract. And we all know what Disney does to children. Imagine what they do to trans kids.
That she was being used, consciously or not, as the ultimate armor for the family's Hollywood brand. That the life she's living in front of cameras and on red carpets wasn't something she stepped into freely. It was something she was placed into. And now, allegedly, the people close to this household are saying exactly that. That this isn't just a loving, progressive family doing their best, that what's actually operating behind that front door is a finely tuned, aggressively managed public relations machine. And that Zia, according to these same sources, is allegedly reaching a breaking point. Let's go back to the beginning, because the foundation matters here. When Zia first came out to the Dwyane and Gabrielle at 12 years old, Gabrielle Union publicly admitted that she didn't have a roadmap. She said she immediately started sliding into DMs, reaching out to the cast of the show Pose, hunting down psychologists, pulling in every resource she could find to figure out how to respond to what her child was telling her.
It feels pretty amazing because Zaya is my date tonight, and for her to be able to see so many members of her community, of our community, that she's looked up to, that have inspired her, that have held her down, you know, had her back, is pretty huge. And there's not too many moments where I'm, as a parent, where I get to deliver that in this kind of way.
On the surface, that sounds like a devoted parent doing her homework. But here's the question nobody in the mainstream press wanted to ask. What if every single move that followed, every speech, every magazine cover, every activist platform, every corporate partnership was not just supportive parenting, but a meticulously engineered PR campaign designed to extract maximum cultural and financial capital from Zaya's identity? Because that is exactly what people are now alleging. The strategy, if you can call it that, is almost elegant in how airtight it's been. By positioning themselves as the gold standard of progressive, affirming parenthood, Dwyane and Gabrielle built a force field around their public images. You can't critique them without looking like the villain. And underneath that force field, allegedly, they built something else. Revenue streams, endorsement opportunities, speaking engagements, and a brand identity that is directly tied to Zaya's existence as a public figure. That's the accusation sitting on the table right now. And word is that Zia herself is no longer holding it together in silence. People paying close attention are pointing to old interview footage and her own social media, saying the signs are there if you actually look. Beneath the fashion, beneath the polished appearances, they're seeing someone exhausted, someone carrying something too heavy for where she is in life. The allegation circulating is that Zia is suffocating under the pressure of being the human logo for her family's brand, that her entire identity has been packaged, monetized, and distributed through corporate deals, and that privately, she is done with it. Here's what makes all of this impossible to dismiss. Zaya's birth mother already said it on the record and put it in a legal filing. She alleged directly that Dwyane and Gabrielle were pushing Zaya toward a legal name and gender change, not purely out of support, but because business opportunities had already materialized around it. She argued that if their intentions were genuinely about Zaya's well-being, they would have waited until she turned 18 to make any legally binding decisions. What she included in that petition was not vague. She stated that Dwyane had informed her that significant money had already been generated, and that more money would follow in connection with their child's name and gender situation. She stated he told her directly that he intended to make Zaya famous because of it, and that endorsement contracts were already attached. That is not an interpretation. That is what was documented. Zaya's birth mother went further. She laid out how Dwyane's celebrity status as a professional athlete had made their children's lives inescapably public, and that his media appearances specifically around Zaya's transition had amplified that exposure to a national scale.
Sat down with us as a family and said, hey, I don't think I'm gay, right? I identify myself as a young lady, but she's known that for 9 years.
She's known since she was 3.
She's known since she was 3 years old. This is her life. This is no game to us. We're about protecting her heart. We're about protecting her joy.
Her concern wasn't ideological, it was protective. She was scared of what uncontrolled media exposure does to a child. The trolling, the images stripped of context, the kind of unwanted spotlight that a grown adult would struggle to carry, let alone someone who was still a kid. She was afraid of consequences that no parent, no matter how famous, can actually manage once they're in motion. And a massive portion of the public heard her say all of that and said, "We see it too." He went straight to Instagram and torched her, called it an unwavering attempt to drag his name through the mud, called it a book of lies, and accused Sivan of centering herself while abandoning her children. His exact words were that he would not sit on his hands and let her make a mockery of his dedication to his family. And the high road, he said, had run out of real estate. All of that aimed at a woman who simply said, wait, who asked that her child at least reach adulthood before a decision that permanent was locked in. People were watching that post go up in real time, and the consensus was clear. The reaction was way too aggressive for what was actually being asked. You don't blow up the internet on a mother who said, "Can we give it more time?" That's not a threat. That's a parent. And Gabrielle's role in all of this was not passive either. While Dwyane was handling the public demolition of Sivan's credibility, Gabrielle was fully out in the culture celebrating Zaya's transition. Magazine covers, red carpets, public cheerleading at every turn, which would be one thing if Sivan's feelings had been acknowledged at any point. But they weren't. She was brushed aside and then buried, and people noticed. Now here is the part that stops being about feelings and starts being about money, because Sivan may have been dismissed as irrelevant, but what she was worried about, it materialized in the most visible way possible. Since Zaya's transition became public, the brand deals started stacking. Miu Miu, Prada, Tiffany & Company, high-profile runway appearances, a Disney deal that by any reasonable estimate moved serious money through that household. We are talking about a child becoming an industry asset almost overnight. And when you line that timeline up against Sivan's warning that this was too soon, that Zaya was too young, that the adults around her had interests of their own, you have to sit with that. You be the judge of what it means. But the math is right there. And then there's the other layer that people have been whispering about for years, and it goes directly to Dwyane's own psychology. The argument people keep coming back to is that Dwyane didn't just support Zaya, he needed to. That this was personal for him in a way that had nothing to do with Zaya and everything to do with who Dwyane Wade is behind closed doors.
So show us the nails.
Don't get a close-up of my nails.
No?
Listen, I've been on the road. I'm gonna do like this.
But we see a pop of color.
Yeah.
What was the impetus for it?
Expression.
Expression.
Yeah, expression. You know, I'm creative.
Because Zaya didn't always identify as trans. She came out as gay first. And when she eventually identified as a girl, Dwyane moved fast. Petition filed with the Los Angeles County Superior Court, legal name change locked in, the whole apparatus set in motion. And Dwyane's explanation? He said Zaya knew she was a girl when she was 3 years old. 3 years old? We are talking about an age where children are still trying to figure out which shoe goes on which foot, where the moon following the car home is a completely rational explanation of the universe, where everything runs on pure imagination and cartoon logic with zero filtering. A 3-year-old does not have a fully developed, consciously articulated understanding of gender identity. And anyone who has spent 5 minutes around a toddler knows that. So when Dwyane sits in front of cameras and presents that as fact, as the foundation for everything that followed, people don't hear clarity. They hear a narrative that was built backwards. And the question that follows is obvious. Whose idea was this really? That question gets louder when you factor in what Dwyane himself has put on the record about his own past. Because the allegations about him being on the down low didn't come from gossip blogs or anonymous sources. He fueled them himself. In a 2021 interview with I Am Athlete, Dwyane sat down and voluntarily told the world that he used to wear his sister's heels and clothes when he was a kid. He said it out loud.
I used to do all those things. I try to put on whatever my sisters wear, whatever my sisters did, I try to do those things. So at first I said to myself, oh no, I did that. So I ain't just doing the things that I did. And then it kept going further and further, and then me and my wife had to look at each other and say,
in public, and people filed that away. Then the blind items started circulating. And look, blind items are blind items, but some of them carry weight that makes you stop scrolling. This particular one described a former A-list NBA player who allegedly used to sleep with a famous A-list teammate on road trips. Both retired, both married to women, and the two names that kept getting attached to that blind item over and over from multiple corners of the internet were Dwyane Wade and Chris Bosh. We are not making that accusation. We are telling you what was circulating, what people were reading, and why people started connecting dots they couldn't unsee. Then Boosie stepped into the room. And when Boosie speaks on something like this, he does not whisper. After Gabrielle Union publicly suggested that Dwyane had been living on the down low, Boosie went on Twitter and wrote, and this is a direct quote, "Lol, the whole world know I love women, and the world know your husband loved thee. And then I hope you don't think blacks look at y'all like a power couple. They don't. I had refused to talk about y'all in interviews. And here you go. Go bang him with that D and wait on a script, you little white girl." That is not a throwaway comment. That is a man saying he has been holding something back and finally decided to say it. And beyond Boosie, Jaguar Wright has also gone on record making serious allegations about both Dwyane and Gabrielle. The accusations keep stacking. And that is exactly why people are looking at the entire Zaya situation through a completely different lens now. When you line it all up, the legal war that silenced Zaya's biological mother, the modeling contracts, the runway appearances, the fashion deals tied directly to Gabrielle's Hollywood network, the pattern starts looking less like unconditional parental love and more like narrative management, more like brand architecture, more like two people with something to protect using their child's story as a shield. People are now asking a question that nobody in the mainstream press wants to print. Did Zaya actually choose this hyper-public life? Or was she guided into it by Gabrielle's industry connections before she was old enough to understand what that spotlight would cost her? Because the word coming from people close to the situation is that Zaya is feeling the pressure. No leaked documents, no official statement, no receipts with her name on them, but those who know her are allegedly watching someone navigate a life that was architected around her rather than built by her. And I don't know where the truth ends and the speculation begins on this one. I genuinely don't. What I do know is that nobody is asking whether she's okay. They're too busy celebrating what she represents to them. And that distinction matters enormously. So we're putting it to you directly. Do you think Gabrielle and Dwyane pushed Zaya toward a decision she was not ready to carry in public? And do you honestly believe Gabrielle would have opened that door at such a young age if Zaya were her biological daughter? That question alone should make you stop and think. Drop your answer in the comments right now, because this conversation is just getting started. If you're tired of the watered-down takes and want the real story behind what's happening in the culture, stick with BarzBuzz. We don't do PR, we don't do spin, just the truth the industry doesn't want trending. Subscribe and make sure you're notified. The next one drops sooner than you think.